The onset of 2017 was an intense bake-off for me. A big order came flying into the family bakery, leaving me with a seemingly insurmountable task. If this happened a few years ago, I would have probably panicked, but the old blood of the Busan bakery was in my veins. I knew I could rise to the occasion, even if it meant spending an entire night dancing with dough and dusted in flour. I remember vividly. I started my labor of love just as the last strains of sunlight slipped behind the bustling streets of Busan. The stillness of the night wrapped around me like an apron as the aroma of fresh dough rose in tandem with the palpable pressure. In the hushed silence of the evening, I found my rhythm, becoming a one-man orchestra directing the symphony of ingredients and utensils. Nights holding a different allure of baking, of unleash the power, immense yet intimate, of creating something out of almost nothing. Kneading the dough required patience, making sure there was enough balance in the body and soul of it. The whispering sizzle of golden crusts meeting the hot oven's belly played a lullaby in the background, the harmonious ballet of baking unfolding under the moon's watchful gaze. Where an ordinary observer could see an arduous challenge, I found an enduring test of strength, both physical and mental, in it. Even the most regular batch of dough, under the relentless kneading, proofing, shaping, and baking of a diligent baker, could transform into a stunningly plump loaf of bread by dawn. The aroma of freshly baked goodies rose like silent morning hymns, spreading through the labyrinth of narrow streets. The story of that night was not just about the baking itself. It was a journey, a narrative woven with flour-covered hands and a resolute spirit. Every mix, every knead, and every bake were a testament to my dedication and love for baking, absorbed over the years of growing up in a baking family. In the calm hours of my nocturnal devotion, I was no longer just Hyun, the son of a baker and a schoolteacher. I was a baker myself, rising to the occasion, making my parents proud. It dawned on me that sweat and sleepless nights are just prerequisites in the hearty recipe of a baker's life, and I was ready to simmer in this flavorful broth of experiences. I was not making just bread, I was kneading my dreams, shaping my ambitions, and baking my future, one loaf at a time. Despite the weariness that made my bones ache and the blisters that marred my hands, I found an inexplicable satisfaction, a certain joy in a job well done. By the first light of dawn, I stood in the bakery with my labor's reward stacked in hearty piles, each of them textbook perfect, and a testimony to one full night of passionate craftsmanship. The aroma of freshly baked bread hung in the morning air, a fragrant testimony of my diligent night-long endeavor. I looked at my flour-dusted reflection in the bakery's glass window, a little exhausted but more gratified. I couldn't help suppress the wide smile that came to my face. That dawn brought me more than just morning. It brought me immense pride and fulfillment. April in Busan felt warmer than usual, or maybe it was just my sense of accomplishment that was radiating the heat. One ordinary afternoon, I found myself standing in the kitchen with something extraordinary, a loaf of sourdough bread I made from scratch. It wasn't just any sourdough bread, it was our family recipe, perfected by generations of committed bakers. I looked at the loaf, so ordinary to the naked eye, but to me it was a badge of honor, a token symbolizing my arrival as a true baker. I could still recall the exact sensation of holding that fresh batch in my hands. The dough was soft, the edges crisp, and the aroma subtly sweet, just the way it used to be when my grandmother baked it. It amazed me how a piece of bread held so much history and pride. It was as if the sourdough was telling the tale of my roots, of the humble Busan bakery, and the journey that I was undertaking. The road to mastering the sourdough recipe was neither quick nor straight. Early mornings, late nights, messed up dough, burnt edges, missed punches. There were a fair share of both success and brickbats on the way. I had to balance the precise kneading, slow fermentation, and razor-sharp timing and all this, while ensuring that the dough maintained its moisture. It wasn't just the process, but also my persistence that was repeatedly tested. I remember cursing myself several times during my numerous failed attempts, wondering if I had overstepped, taken on more than I could chew. But recalling my father kneading the dough with his worn-out hands, his sweat trickling onto the flour, his resolve never shaking, it was an image etched in my memory, a beacon of relentless determination. This memory spurred me on, and with every lump of dough I knead my ambition into it. I fell and I rose just like the bread did in the oven. I still remember the day when the sourdough loaf finally came out perfect. The crust was a beautiful golden brown, and as I cut into it, the interior was just the right mix of soft and chewy. I'll admit I teared up a bit. It felt like a silent nod from my forefathers saying, "You've finally done it, Hyun." I held that loaf close, like a cherished award, a testament to the countless hours, relentless persistence, and endless passion that led me on inclusive a flight all the way up to Cloud 9. There was something magical about the art of unleashing the soul of dough, and I was ecstatic that I could finally do it just right. I had always held a special regard for sourdough. It's a living thing, you know. It grows, it changes, and needs to be nurtured. Just like bakers, it takes a journey, being nurtured, proving itself, and finally it lives. The toasty smell of freshly baked sourdough was worth every difficulty, every falter, every sleepless night spent in attempting to master it. Oh, how the aroma of success smelled delightful! That day, as I beheld my victory loaf of sourdough, it no longer felt like just about making bread, but creating the right mixture of love, dedication, and heritage. This wasn't another day in the bakery for me. This was the day that I, Hyun Song, son of a baker from Busan, evolved into a true baker, upholding a family legacy that emitted warmth, flavor, and familiarity, all from a simple loaf of bread. I relished the remaining chilly winters in Busan as my departure for Paris beckoned in a few months' time. To soothe my restless conscience, I decided to get out of the kitchen a bit, break loose from my never-ending cooking ventures, and engage in something I had always enjoyed: football. I called up my friend Min Jun one sunny day, who still played for the street football team from our youth, and expressed my desire to join him and a few others for a light game down at the beach. The laughter and camaraderie that afternoon were such a welcome break, a perfect moment of tranquility amid the whirlwind of emotions that were brewing within me. I was reminded of those younger days when we would play till dusk. The football under the setting sun was more than just a game. It was about friendships, passion, and unspoken dreams. What impressed me that day was not just my persisting football skills, but my ability to still bestow intense concentration between my work and passion, just like I would between the dough and the oven. Playing football that day amidst the tranquility of the beach was a roller coaster ride down memory lane, the smell of the fresh sea breeze blending with the indistinct chatters of people and the sound of waves splashing against the shore. The memories of countless sunsets spent playing football, though seemingly fading into the past, were alive as I balanced the ball with my foot kicking it strongly into the horizon. I remember catching my reflection in Min Jun's eyes, and then a voice echoed within me, "Hyun, you've managed to retain your old charming self amidst the towering responsibilities and passion that consumes you." In retrospect, that afternoon spent on the beach playing football like old times was not just about making up for lost times or feeling nostalgic. It was a celebration of the person I had become. Tough, determined, hard-working, yet soft, nostalgic, and deeply grounded. As we packed our day, I realized our lives were like the football game itself. Just like how in football, our goal was not to merely chase the ball but to move together with strategy. In life, too, achieving the end goal was more about the journey rather than the destination. Every beat of my heart seemed to add another layer to my life's painting that day. Every sensation, every laughter, the smell of the sea, the feeling of sand under my feet served as a reminder of the kind of person I had become. Whether it was the French bread proving in the oven or mastering the bona fide goals in a football game, each gave me immense joy and a sense of satisfaction. How refreshing it was to realize that life could be enjoyed outside the kitchen too. All it took was a good old day of playing football, balancing my love for cooking and embracing my passion for the game. Stepping into the bustling kitchen of an Italian eatery in Seoul, the first thing that hit me was the warm, lovely aroma of freshly baked bread. The kitchen was a whirlwind of activity, every cook expertly managing their respective tasks, leaving me a little dazed and wide-eyed. I was introduced to my station, where I'd be spending countless hours in the days to come, kneading dough, cutting vegetables, perfecting the delicate art of making pasta, and baking, lots of baking. Though Italian cuisine is a far cry from the homely Korean and French recipes I had mastered, I was eager to dive in, learn a new culinary art, hone my skills, and bring my own flavors to the mix. In no time I found myself pounding dough, helping the head chef with sauces and learning to whip up a mean pizza just like the Romans do. Despite the initial hurdles, I quickly integrated myself into the fast-paced rhythm of the kitchen, brushing shoulders with other cooks, and maintaining the speed and efficiency required in a restaurant kitchen. However, there was an aspect I had overlooked, something I had taken for granted during my culinary journey back in Busan and Paris: my pastry-making skills. In the realm of Italian cooking, alongside pasta and pizza, pastries held a prominent place. I was no stranger to baking, having spent a significant part of my life in a bakery. Yet there was a vast difference between kneading a humble sourdough and crafting a delicate, flaky croissant. My first encounter with pastries turned out to be a humbling experience. Neither the immense mounds of bread I baked for orders, nor the pizzas I was learning to perfect, saved me from the struggle of crafting the perfect pastry. Try as I might, my pastries came out too hard, too soft, or failed to rise. The pastries were nothing close to the golden, flaky perfection I aspired to achieve. This was an area where all my culinary expertise seemed to fail me, and this deficiency left a sour taste in my mouth. It felt like a personal defeat, but also a wake-up call. I always bragged about my love for food, my passion for cooking, and my experience over years working with oven and dough. But at that moment, standing in the kitchen, I realized that regardless of the culinary journey I had embarked on, there was still much to learn. So many tastes and techniques waiting to be explored, and so many beautiful mistakes waiting to be made. The undulating road of bringing stories to plate through the art of cooking never ceased to amaze and humble me. There was a quiet resilience growing within me. The same resilience that had carried me through the years, through the blossoming and the blood, sweat, and tears of my culinary journey, now glowed in my eyes as I braced myself inside the vibrant kitchen, embracing my deficiency. My previously conquered culinary arenas did little to combat this new strife. So, I rose early and stayed back late, pouring all possible resources into fixing the chinks in my armor. The quiet calm of the dawn and the eerie stillness of the night became my companions, as piles of ruined dough became a symbolic witness, marking the transformation within me. Each pastry that crumbled under my touch amplified my determination. And those too small, too big, unfitting the mold. They hurt, yes, but they didn't break me. Instead, they took me back to the long nights at the family bakery, the nights where success was counted not in perfect loaves, but in the tiny improvements made each time the oven door closed. And so I kneaded, whipped, and folded my way through dozens of recipes. Flaky croissant, airy cannoli, and decadent sfogliatella gave me one more lesson in this never-ending pursuit of culinary artistry. There was no giving up, only understanding, adapting, and perfecting. I welcomed my mistakes not as failures, but as stepping stones in my uncharted path towards mastering the art of pastry making. In a restaurant kitchen, you're on your own, cast into the spotlight, and your mettle is tested in the fire of the culinary theater. There's no time for self-doubt or second-guessing. You need to be confident in your craft and nimbly adapt to the fast-paced narrative of service. This is a stage where the thrill and the fear coexist, balancing on the edge of the knife you wield. One wrong move, and it all comes crashing down. As weeks turned into months, I found my pastries gradually becoming golden, crisp, and flaky, just as I aspired them to be. Yes, they were not perfect, I won't pretend so, but the texture, the cracks, and even the aroma had started to align with what I'd envisioned. Biting into a pistachio cannoli with the perfect crunch brought a sense of achievement that, overwhelming me. The sweet victory taken in small bites, savored slowly, had me grinning wider with each piece that came out of the oven. Hyun, the baker from Busan, the aspiring chef from Le Cordon Bleu, was now standing in a European-inspired kitchen in Seoul, not as an outsider, but as a relentless force. This journey was making me whole, filling in the blanks and binding together the myriad chapters of my life into a cohesive narrative. And in this narrative, I was the man battling his weaknesses, improving them into strengths, and no pastry, no matter how stubborn, could stand in my way. After all, isn't that how one truly masters their craft? The culmination of my perseverance started reflecting in the masterpieces I was creating. I still remember the moment when the fragrant aroma of my own raspberry tart filled the kitchen, bringing every conversation to a quiet standstill. That was a victorious moment like no other, standing there in the heart of Seoul, head held high with pride for having achieved what I first perceived as an insurmountable feat. Underneath the glaze of culinary success, there were layers of my journey that were baked together in the form of this humble pastry. As the flakes fell apart crisply, the tart revealed a story a story of a boy from Busan honing his skill in Paris, and then embellishing the tastes of Seoul with his deftness. Tasting my own creation, I felt the echo of my childhood, my past experiences, my struggles, all merging into this harmoniously sweet symphony, playing gracefully on my palate. Indeed, the accomplishments were a joy to savor, but my journey was far from being over. Each day in the kitchen served as a new chapter in my story, adding a fresh perspective and honing my culinary instincts. The burning desire to improve, to perfect, to become the best version of myself was what had been driving me throughout these years, and it was far from being extinguished. My culinary journey was like traversing a culinary maze, each turn leading to an unexpected surprise, an unexplored ingredient that challenged my expertise, a culinary conundrum that demanded my attention. I had come a long way from my initial years at the family bakery, but there was a long road ahead. And so, instead of dwelling upon the victories, I spearheaded myself towards the myriad of untouched recipes waiting to be perfected. The challenges were daunting, but each hurdle crossed added another feather to my hat. The prowess that I had gained after these years of relentless striving was now my trusty shield, protecting me from the searing drawbacks and pushing me magnificently towards my goals. The melange of garlic and tomato coming from the simmering bolognese sauce mixed with the sweet allure of simmering chocolate, serving as constant reminders of the dualities of my culinary journey. The realization of the amalgamation of different cultures, from the steaming piles of rice cakes in Busan to the buttery croissants of Paris, and now the fresh-baked pizzas in Seoul, expanded the limitlessness of my craft. The homogeneity of the dough I kneaded was akin to my life, binding the experiences, the skills, and the dreams into a single mold, ready to rise and shape itself in the warmth of the oven. Ultimately, I chose not just to overcome and master my flaws, but to utilize them to fuel my passion. It was this loving embrace of my shortcomings and my relentless endeavor to improve that was shaping me into a true culinary artist. I was not just a baker from Busan or a chef from Paris anymore. I was Hyun, the culinary maestro, whose symphony was yet to reach its crescendo. As the sun began to dip, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, my mind wandered back to the beginning of my culinary journey. The stark contrast between my humble beginnings and the seasoned professional I am today felt similar to the variety in my kitchen. The robust tang of the Korean gochujang was now coexisting beautifully with the flavorsome Italian herbs. It wasn't just about mastering the sourdough or perfecting the marinara anymore. It was about blending the complexities of both my identities, a Korean with an Italian soul. My pursuit to improve took me back to the recurrent days of bread baking in the family bakery. I remember the heft of the dough in my hands, its texture almost therapeutic beneath my fingertips. I realized then, my aptitude for bread was not just in the recipe, but in my ability to listen to the dough, to cooperate with it, guiding it into its most fragrant, wholesome incarnation. This experience was invaluable. It connected me to the tactile reality of baking, infusing me with a profound respect for the craft. I thought of the bustling bakery of my childhood, the oven hotter than a summer day, the sweet scent of freshly baked bread wafting through the shop. Throughout my life, I have sought to replicate that warmth and homey comfort in the restaurants I worked in. For me, cooking was not just about the need to feed, but also encapsulating my love for the culinary art in every dish I prepared. The rich combination of flavors and even richer experiences made me realize that cooking was a language, enabling me to articulate what words could not. Each crusty loaf of sourdough bread I baked was an untold story about the city I was born in, the city that shaped me, and the city I now called home. From the saltiness of Busan seawater to the buttery croissants in Paris, and now, the sizzling pizzas in Seoul, I carried them all within me. These cities, my experiences, had kneaded themselves into my identity just as I kneaded every dough. Much like my ever-expanding repertoire of culinary skills, I realized my journey, too, would continue to shape and mold me. Today, standing in the heart of Seoul, I am not just an aspiring chef, but the embodiment of a rich mix of cultures and culinary art. Just as the Italian cuisine had absorbed me, I too soaked in every bit of Seoul, transforming not just my professional journey but also my personal growth. From a young boy kneading dough in Busan, to studying in Paris and now honing my skills in Seoul, my journey continued to evolve, just like the yeast in my sourdough. Nostalgia swirling within me, I progressed, knowing that every hurdle crossed was another lesson learned, another ingredient added to the recipe of my life. No matter the challenges that lay ahead, I knew I would embrace them, improving and perfecting, just as I had done with my pastries. The long road of discovery was merely a path to my ultimate goal, my dream of creating a symphony of flavors that would resonate within every bite, across every city. Now I carry the essence of all that I am and all that I have been within me, ready to rise like my favorite loaf.